day. So as we get started, I did want to introduce myself. My name is Allison Tibbs, and today we're talking all about sustainable success. I think that's what we all want. We know we want success. We want to be successful in our work, but we want to do it in a way that doesn't burn us out. This is a topic that I have been so passionate about because I know that for a lot of you here on this call or watching the recording, you are brilliant. You have a lot of ideas. You're working with purpose. You have impact. You are looking to improve your life financially and make a big impact for your purpose. All of these things are so important for founders. And as a founder myself, I'm right there with you. But what I see time and time again, and from my own experience, that burnout is such a huge component that often gets missed, and we tend to overlook it. So I want to take a moment for each of us just to kind of take some time really quickly and think about our energy. So if you believe that your energy is your most valuable currency in your business, which I 100% believe, I think that your energy is just as important as your IP. It's just as important as the team you build. Your energy as a founder is so, so important. And if your energy is off, then you are missing a huge opportunity for you to do what you are setting out to do. So if your energy is the most valuable currency in your business, how wisely are you spending it right now? I'm not talking about resources. I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about time. I'm talking about your energy. How wisely are you spending your energy right now? And let's take a moment and think about that. How are you spending your energy? It can be on a scale from 1 to 10. If you want to put it in chat, I would love to see that. But how are you spending your energy? Because it's not a resource that's just readily available forever, right? It is finite. And oftentimes as founders, we believe that we are machines or that we're exceptions to the rule. But if you start getting really clear on asking yourself this question, how am I spending my energy right now? That's a first tip or strategy I would share with you. If you start getting really clear on how you're spending your energy every day, every kind of portion of the day, you're going to start to get more clarity around how to best support yourself. And that's really what I believe as, founders. And a lot of us, we are also in the energy business. So as you're thinking about that, let's, dive in a little bit of why this is important. Because today what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you some simple actionable strategies to sustain both your business and yourself. Because again, your energy is so important, and how you pour into your business from your energy sources is important. So today's about giving you tools to protect your most valuable resource, your energy, so you can scale, innovate, lead in a way that doesn't cost you your well-being. And I'm really passionate about this because about 4 years ago, I pushed myself to the brink of burnout, and then I kept going, and I ended up in the hospital for 4 days. And that was a real wake-up call for me, because I thought that I was exception to the rule. I thought that I had more energy than everyone else. I thought that I could do more than everyone else. And it was a really scary moment. And that really shifted the way that I run my business, the way that I run my life. And it really shifted what I started to really be passionate about in the work that I do. And because of that, that's really where I shifted a lot of my business, where I am now fully into wellness and burnout recovery. So I coach a lot of executives, leaders, founders, and support teams, Fortune 500 teams all over the world around taking better care of themselves. My company, Nourished Life Coaching Consulting, that's where it runs through. As I mentioned, I'm also a founder. I'm currently building a wellness platform for high achieving women. So not only am I walking the walk and talking the talk, but I'm also trying to build a solution and a resource for those who are struggling and those who are in the same situation that I was in years ago. I've been featured in Women's Health, Shape Magazine, Oprah Daily, Pop Sugar, really about my mental health advocacy, well-being, and empowerment kind of POV that I have in the space. So that's who I am. If you want to learn more about me, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or all the socials. I'm very easy to find. But today is really not about me. It's about you. So as we lean into this, we're going to go through 3 strategies that we're going to look at for founders that can be sustainable and easy to implement into your daily practice, and also could be something that you might not think are things that you can do, or you might overlook them. Um, I find that a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, they really do struggle with this. And the first thing is self-care. When we hear the term self-care, I often get eye rolls. I often get people saying, Allison, I don't have time for self-care. I don't have time to take a bubble bath. I don't have time to book a massage. Like, I have big things. I have big deadlines. I have a lot on my plate right now. And I understand that is how it can feel. And so I also understand that self-care is a really important strategy, especially for leaders and founders, because we need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself in the process, because you are not a machine. And I often find that most times my clients come to me once they've had a stent in the hospital, once they've had a heart attack. And these are people who are young in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who are coming to me saying, I had a heart attack, I had a stroke, I had things happening in my life that really shook my core and either put my business on hold. It made me have some interesting relationships with my investors. My team no longer feels confident in me as a founder, as a leader, because you're not taking care of yourself. So the first strategy is micro self-care. And when we think about it, the way I look at it is that self-care is the intentional practice of tending to your needs. That is the simplest way to break down self-care. It doesn't have to look a specific way. It can look different from one person to the next, right? There are many different ways that self-care can be put into your life, where, Fatima can have self-care looking one way, where Jyoti can have it look another way, where Shruti can have it look another way. It's all dependent on you and what really works for your needs. And as founders, it's so important that we start to create space for these small, low effort practices that create consistency and momentum. That's really what I'm asking when I work with my clients. We're identifying, number one, what are your needs? And I often find that for founders, especially, very rarely are you thinking about what your needs are. You're typically tending to the needs of everyone else, everything else around you, and you have forgotten what you need, or you've ignored what you need. If I had $1 for every time I spoke to someone who says, I just get into the zone and I forget to eat, I forget to sleep, I forget to get water, I forget to go to the bathroom, I'm just like pushing to get things done, to meet timelines, to meet milestones, all of those things, that's problematic because you're really neglecting your most basic needs. But there are additional needs that you might have that you're ignoring. And over time, the more that you ignore your needs, it's going to show up physically, mentally, emotionally. It's going to show up in your relationships. And if you're not tending to your needs, even the small basic ones, I can guarantee you're not tending to the big ones either. And usually you're tending to them once you get to the end of the sprint or the end of that big push and you get sick, you get an injury, or something worse happens. But if you can start getting into the practice of these small, low effort practices that you can integrate throughout your day, throughout your week, those small practices done consistently build momentum and they create big impact. So I want you to start thinking about what are some small things that you can start doing. And when I say small, I mean anywhere from like 1 minute to 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be long because I also know time is of the essence. But a short spurt of self-care throughout the day can have a really great return on your energy and your ability to think clearly, process emotions, all those different things. So let's take a moment, and I just want to share with you, just how to really incorporate that into your life. So for me, my go-to self-care moment is I do the same Peloton yoga class. It is 15 minutes, and I do it every single morning when I wake up. So I literally wake up. I typically wake up, I have my AirPods like right next to the bedstand. The second that I wake up, I have a meditation playlist and I just play the next meditation that's on the playlist. And I lay in bed and kind of get myself ready for the day. But then what I do is I get up and I do my 15 minutes of yoga. Like I said, it's the same Peloton class every single day. And I do it primarily because it's short enough. It's only 15 minutes. I also do the same one because it's just like, I don't have to think too much about it. I know the sequence. So I'm not like, this is something new. I don't have to, to learn something new. And 3, it's one less decision I have to make. We make 35,000 decisions a day. So if I can just know that the second I get up and get out of bed, I go turn on the Peloton app, stream it to my TV, and do the 15-minute class that I've been doing every day for months, I'm good to go. And that is my very first like micro self-care moment that I really do for myself. And I tell you, I feel so much better because I'm moving my body. I'm doing something that's short, has a lot of impact, and it's a low effort lift for me. And I can always find 15 minutes to do this. If I don't do anything else, I know that I can do this 15-minute class. And that's what's so important, is that you keep it simple, you keep it short, and you make it sustainable, right? Peloton, it's an app. I can do it literally at a hotel room when I'm traveling. I can do it at home. I can do it outside if I'm, visiting family or friends and I don't have space to do it. And I've been doing the class so much that I don't have to think about it. So that is a way to really think about it and kind of go through it that way. Another way that you can think about it is, your own life, where maybe it's during the day, maybe it's at night, maybe it's in the evening, but finding those moments for self-care. Another one that I really like is breathing. And I attended one of the workshops a couple of weeks ago where we had a woman who walked us through a couple of different breathing techniques, and she shared box breathing. She shared the trace your hand. I loved that one. This is another one that I love, which is 4-7-8 breathing. And if you're listening and you just need a moment, maybe you're super stressed out, maybe you have a lot going on right now in your day, then I invite you to practice this short self-care moment with me. We're going to take about 90 seconds to do this together. Now, when we're doing this 4-7-8 breath, we're going to inhale for 4 counts. We're going to hold for 7 counts. And then we're going to exhale for 8 counts. And we're going to repeat this for a total of 3 rounds. Now, if you're driving, I would probably say maybe not do this because it could get you really relaxed. Also, if you are pregnant or if you have high blood pressure or a heart condition, then the hold for 7, I would actually say do not hold because that could create some complications with blood pressure or, different things like that. So if you do have any of those things going on in your life, pregnancy or blood pressure or heart conditions, you're just going to inhale for 4 and you're going to exhale for 8. Another thing is, if you are sitting down, you just want to make sure that your legs are uncrossed, that your hips are in your chair, so you're not shifting to one side or the other, that your spine is nice and tall, and you have some space in your throat. So a lot of times I find when we're in our flow state, or we're really like in the zone, or we're hyper stressed, our shoulders are so close to our ears. So what we want to do is we want to drop our shoulders down. We want to make sure that our feet are planted on the ground, or our hips are on the ground, and we're going to roll those shoulders back. And we're going to go ahead and get started with this process. If you want to close your eyes, feel free to do that. But we're going to start with a big inhale for 4. So inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. Now you're holding just for 7 seconds. We're almost there. 5, 6, 7. Big exhale for 8. Try to make it smooth, make it steady. Keep exhaling. 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. Keep going. And last one, inhale and hold. Keep holding. And exhale. Make this the biggest exhale you have. Keep going, and done. Go back to regular breathing pattern. That's that 4-7-8 breath. And I love it so much. It's so powerful. Hopefully you're feeling relaxed. If you want to put into chat how you're feeling, go for it. But this is something that you can do that no one even knows that you're doing it. If you're on a call and it's feeling really stressful, do the 4-7-8 breath. If you are in a conversation that's really stressful, do the 4-7-8 breath. as you're driving in between one meeting to the next, do some of that. Right before you walk into a meeting or a room, do the 4-7-8 breath. At the end of the day, you can do it. It's a perfect example of how something so short, so small, so simple can easily be added to your day. And it makes a huge, huge difference. So as you're thinking about it, just think about what's one micro practice that you can realistically commit to each day to support your energy, your focus, or your resilience. And as you're thinking about it, just do this kind of check. Is it simple enough to do even on your busiest day? Right? My 15-minute yoga or the 4-7-8 breath, I can pretty much find time to do either one of those every single day. And I can do the breath work multiple times a day, and I do them multiple times a day. And then on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you that you'll follow through? And if it's less than 7 out of 10, like you're like, I don't know if I can do it, then make it smaller, make it more simple, make it easier to do, because the goal is to find these micro moments. The goal is not to make it feel like another item on your to-do list, which a lot of people feel that self-care has become because of social media and influencers with these 15-step self-care routines and these very elaborate self-care practices, where it's like, right now in this current stage of my life, I don't have that. And for myself, I know I don't have that. So I have to make sure that it's small, simple, and sustainable. So that's the first strategy. And feel free to share in the chat if you have one that you are thinking about or one that works for you, because for some people, this is a challenge. They don't know what to do and they might need some inspiration. So feel free to share in the chat if you have one that really works for you. So that was the first strategy. The second strategy are the intentional pauses. Now, typically when people hear the term pause, you think it means do nothing. You think it means like resting and not having, not being able to do anything at all. Now, if that's how you feel, go for it. But for me, doing nothing or being still sometimes can be a challenge for me, because that's typically where my mind starts racing a mile a minute. So when I say this term intentional pauses, what I'm saying is taking a pause from that like hustle and grind, taking a pause from the doing and focus on the being for a moment. So it's taking a pause from the doing and focusing on the being. And what I mean by that is a lot of times in my life where my innovation has come, my great ideas have come, they've come not when I've been cranking away at my laptop or working on building wireframes or kind of like in the weeds of building my business. It's come in these very intentional moments that I've created for myself, because I know that inspiration can come in many different ways. So when I'm saying intentional pauses, it is a rest, but it's rest that is not necessarily about, taking a nap, but taking a nap is also great too. But understanding that rest in those pauses is the fuel for clarity and innovation, because we want to give our brains time to either catch up with all the work that we've been doing, or we want to give our brains a moment to be expansive, to be creative, to be innovative. And as founders, we need to create more space for intentional pauses that provide mental white space to process emotions, spark new ideas, and recharge your focus for high impact work. And this can look differently for every single person. As I said, just like your self-care can look different, your intentional pauses for rest. And when I say rest, it's just resting from the day-to-day in the weeds work. So these pauses are going to look different, and they can look different from day to day. That's another thing, is giving yourself permission to let it look very different. So my go-to intentional pause is my morning walks. Every single morning, I do take a kind of like a 2-mile walk. It's the same loop through my neighborhood. I wear my weighted vest for just a little bit more focus there, and I'm going for that walk. And the reason why I go for the walk is because I am really thinking about and I'm really focusing on just being in a space where my brain can process. And what the science shows us about going for walks, which are so great, is that as we're walking, our eyes are doing rapid eye movements and scanning. And it's scanning for danger, but that rapid eye movement also is great for helping to process emotions, process hard emotions especially. It helps us with creativity. It helps us with innovation. And so that's why we see a lot of times companies now do walk and talks, where it's like take your team or take your employees and have a conversation while you're walking. We're seeing more innovation, more creativity happening because you're doing that process. And I will tell you that every time I go for my morning walks, either I'm getting clarity on an idea that I'm working on, I'm being able to kind of work through a challenge that I have, I'm able to kind of think deeply about something. Sometimes I get inspired by what I see around me. Getting the fresh air, getting the sunshine on these walks are so powerful. So I schedule my walks every morning as if it's a to-do item on my like to-do list or an important meeting with myself, just as I would schedule any other meeting. And when I don't do those walks, I find that my brain just really struggles to get that creativity that I'm looking for. But also, I'm moving my body, I'm getting fresh air. Wearing the weighted vest is just another way to kind of have it stack. So I'm getting a little bit of resistance. I'm getting some core work because also, if I'm going to be sitting for lots of hours in a day, it helps with posture. So for me, that walk is more than just, getting my 5,000 steps every morning or getting, my heart rate up. It's actually me doing something that's helping my critical thinking skills and my creativity. So this is something that you can do, and you don't have to go for 2 miles. Maybe it's just a 15-minute walk down the block and back. Maybe it's just kind of taking a quick walk before the day starts or during your lunch, or hopping on the phone instead of sitting in front of a Zoom, taking a phone call during a walk. Every now and then when my clients are really, really stressed out, I actually tell them, like, let's not meet on Zoom, give me a call and take a walk over talking. And when I hear just the relief of my clients, I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I don't have to be in front of a computer screen. I've been in front of the screen all day. They really do enjoy that process as well. So take a walk. That can be an intentional pause from the day-to-day minutia, the day-to-day grind that again builds really, really great energy resources for you, which is so important. So that's something that I would love for you to think about and for you to think through about what is your intentional pauses. So, I always say, and I typically ask this question a lot to founders when we're having conversations, think back to your last breakthrough insight. And did it come while you were grinding at your screen? Or was it in a moment when your mind was free to wander and rest? Now, I'm sure you've had moments where you did get an idea as you're grinding, at your screen late at night. But sometimes I have clients that say, like, oh, I've got my best ideas going for a walk at the grocery store, um, in the shower, as I was washing dishes, right? Where you let your mind just kind of expand a little bit. So I would say if you're like, what can my intentional pause look like? Well, first of all, just think when and where in your day do you naturally feel more clear, creative, and calm? And try to identify what you are doing, where you are. And if you can, try to schedule more of that time into your weeks or into your days. What is one simple pause that you can build into your day? Again, 5 to 10 minutes to give your mind space to reset and recharge. This goes back to my original claim that your energy is one of your most important assets with your business. And if you are not giving your brain and your mind space to be clear and to be creative and innovative, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So this is something else you can really think through as you process through all of this. And it doesn't have to be difficult, but there is some consistency that really helps. But if you think back, I'm sure you've had moments where you're like, oh, Allison, you're right. I actually did have a great breakthrough moment when I did this, and I should probably do that more. And, yes, for one of my clients, she does get her best ideas when she washes dishes. So that's what she'll do. And she said that something about just like being able to look out the window because her kitchen sink is right in front of her window. And, just the warm water and just kind of like this, repeated pattern of washing and the water running down her hands, it kind of puts her into like a trance-like state, almost like a meditative state. And it helps her just to kind of process things in a way. So it's very similar to the way that I feel when I go on my walks. So for her, she washes dishes at night instead of running her dishwasher, but that's the thing that she does at night to kind of like settle herself and calm herself down and let her mind wander a little bit. So it might be unconventional. It might be something a little bit random, but if it gets the job done, I say go for it. I say do it. And the third strategy is an energy audit. And this is something that I highly recommend that we do often. And it goes back to that very first question I asked you about how you're spending your energy. And this isn't about how you spend your time, but it's how you're spending your energy. I find that the most successful founders that I've worked with, the most successful leaders that I've worked with, are those who are not trying to master time or trying to manage time, but they know how to manage their priorities and manage their energy. And they have really good boundaries around their time, their energy, and their priorities. And this is probably the hardest one to do because it requires a little bit more courage and it requires breaking probably some bad habits. And this is where I spend a lot of my time working with my clients, because we have to get them in position where they're creating their lives in a way that's supporting their energy. So priority management is more important than time management, and that's a hill that I will die on. And I honestly believe that sustainable success comes from managing your energy, not just your time. And as founders, we need to be better at creating space for getting clear on what is truly a priority, so you can direct your focus towards what drives growth and let go of what doesn't. I see tons of founders doing everything or doing more than they need to do, and it's burning them out. I see them lean into trying to be available 24/7, taking on more than they have the capacity for. They're wearing busyness like a badge of honor, and it's literally driving their energy, driving their mental capacity, and in some cases, driving their health and their businesses into the ground. And this is a huge, huge problem that I see. And I also see a lot of people roll their eyes when I talk about this, because they're like, Allison, I just have so much to do. And I hear you. And also, this is, in my opinion, one of the game changers here from the people I've worked with and had conversations with. So as you're thinking about this, this is a practice that I would recommend every single person do every single day. I do this every single day, and I actually do this in the morning, and I do this after lunch. And just to kind of add on to the strategies that I've been sharing you with, every day I wake up and I do my micro self-care practice, right? My 15 minutes of yoga. Then I do my intentional pause, which is my walk that I do. And then after my walk, I come home, I eat breakfast, I hydrate, I sit down at my desk with my cup of coffee and my breakfast. And I literally do this exercise: do, delegate, delete. And I do this every single day, like I said, right before breakfast or right before I open up my laptop. And I do it again after lunch, because typically the first hour, the first couple of hours are like my deep work time. And then I check emails and then have lunch, and then I reevaluate and see what next do I need to really prioritize. Because depending on what emails come through or phone calls come through within the first few hours of the day, my priorities might need to shift. So the do, delegate, delete is a great exercise. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at your schedule, look at your to-do list. And I say, okay, of this list, what are the tasks that are utterly important, urgent, and things only that I can do, right? So it has to meet those three criteria: important, urgent, and things only I can do. These are the tasks that you should be spending most of your time and energy on at all times. You might have 4 or 5 of those tasks on your list. Then you have to learn how to prioritize which one to do, which order to go into, because your process and your order is also very important. But you should basically be spending most of your time on the do. Once you've identified your do tasks, then you need to look back at the list and first see, okay, all the things that are not a part of the do, is there anything that I can delegate? Because remember, the do are things that only you can do. So everything else on the list might be important, might be urgent, but someone else or something else can do it for you, right? So that's something that I want you to really think about. And so I often have to ask myself, do I need to do this thing on my list? Or is there a person? Is there some AI? Is there a software? Is there a product that can do this? And this can be really challenging for founders, especially when you are kind of in your zone, in your space, because it means giving up some control. It means that you have to delegate to something or someone else, and it might not be done the exact way that you want it to be done. It might not look, or the process may not look the way that you would do it. But some of the most successful founders that I know have gotten really good at delegation, have gotten really good at building trust and relationships with their teams, or with, contractors, whoever they have on their team to do the work to get the job done. And it's a lot of times is making sure that you're building the relationships around shared interests and real alignment to the goal. right? If you can put that into place, then it's a lot easier to delegate because you know that the end result is going to be complete alignment with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. But you have to be bold enough and courageous enough to be able to start delegating more. If founders could perfect or like get better at delegating, we would see burnout really decrease because you also have more time and space for other things like taking care of your mental health, like getting more sleep, like being able to like go for a long walk, like being able to spend time with your loved ones, right? And doing some of these other things, going to the gym, going on more travel, if you are able to delegate. And then the last thing is, does this task actually need to be done at all, or is it a nice to have? I have items on my to-do list that continue to stay on my to-do list for weeks and weeks at end because I don't really need to delegate them and they're not really important. They're not really urgent. And I mean, yeah, maybe I could do them, but they just kind of keep sitting. And how I run my to-do list is that at the end of each month, I get to see what has like stayed on the list and what, has, how long it's been on the list almost. It's like, and once I realize it's kind of gone from August into September, I know that either I can get rid of it or I put it in a parking lot. And maybe that's something I look into for the next quarter. But clearly it's not important enough, it's not urgent enough, and it's not something that only I can do. And I don't really feel the need to delegate it. So I put it in a parking lot and I get back to it later and I'll reevaluate it. And then sometimes I get really clear. I'm just like, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore. Or my priorities or my objectives or my business has shifted and changed and it's no longer needed. So I want to clear that space off my to-do list as well. So I'm not taking up mental energy thinking, how am I going to make that work? So this is an exercise that can be really, really helpful for founders to do. And I encourage you to do it multiple times a day, if possible, to really get that in place. So this is something to think about. Over the course of today, we've looked at three strategies: micro self-care, which are small, low effort practices that build consistency and momentum. We looked at intentional pauses. These are moments that fuel creativity, problem solving, emotional processing. And then we did the energy audit, where you're getting clear on your true priorities by identifying the drains and the gains and applying the do, delegate, delete exercise to focus your energy where you need it most. So what I would leave you with is just, what's one small action you'll commit to in the next 7 days to protect your energy and support your success? I'm constantly asking questions of my clients and of founders because our brains are actually really good at solving problems. And so when we start doing that and applying it to ourselves, we start to come up with some really great solutions for our own self-care and our mental health. And we break the habit of the limiting beliefs that tell us that we don't have time or that we just can't do it. So this is what we covered today. And I really appreciate you just like being here today on the call because it is so important. And sometimes it can feel like an afterthought and sometimes it can feel like you don't have time. But hopefully over the course of this session, you were able to get some ideas or at least some things to maybe revamp your current self-care plan, your current mental health plan, certain strategies that you can use. And if you're interested or ever want more support, you are more than able to reach out to me. You can just go to my website, you can fill out a form and we can connect. But this is just a reminder, and what I want to leave each of you with is that sustainable success isn't about doing more with less time. It's about managing your energy so you can innovate, lead, and grow without burning out. That is my mission to help founders and leaders. It's the mission that I have for myself, and it's the mission that I'm working on with this new platform that I'm building. So I'm really passionate about it because I know how important it is, and I know that for each and every one of you listening and watching, that you have important goals that you want to reach. But if you're not taking better care of yourself in the process, you run the risk of achieving those. And that would be a shame, not just for your own mental and physical and emotional health, but for the people that you've been called to serve and for the impact that you've meant to make.